Now I would like to welcome to the stage Marissa Mayer and Michael Arrington with that transition. And so welcome, Marissa. I'm thrilled that you made it. You're very rare in Europe, so thank you very much for joining us today. Be careful with the wires. Hey, help me welcome Marissa. And Michael Arrington. Hello, Michael. How are you? Yeah, sure, please. So the floor is yours. I guess here's a mic for you.
How long do
Welcome.
we have?
You have
Hour?
Yeah, 2 hours.
Okay, 2 hours.
Welcome.
Will there be enough food for everyone today at lunch? I was just. Will there be enough food for everyone today at lunch?
There will be. All right, well, maybe I should stay. There will be more food. Yes. Did you have any other question for me?
How many people have an internet connection in the audience today? That's three times as many as yesterday. That's great. You don't want me to go down. You don't want me to. You
No,
do you want me to
keep
talk
going.
About
I mean, I thought we would talk with Marissa, but we can,
Then I won't mention the fact that you're wearing a velvet jacket either.
I don't manage this, per se. This is Geraldine, who is. So there will be more. There should be more food. I like you so much, Michael. You're a real friend. So food, yeah. Anything else, Mike?
No,
jacket?
No. Let's talk to Marissa. Are you staying on stage? Are you going to
I
participate?
don't know. It's up to you.
Well, it's up to Marissa, really.
By all means.
All right.
Okay, great. Except I have spoken to Marissa, and I know what I'm not allowed to ask, and you don't know that, so.
Keep going.
Okay, I think we have half an hour, 45 minutes. Okay, so we are going to take as much time at the end as we can to let you ask questions directly to Marissa. So prepare them, and
I'll handle the questions.
What you're doing is you're having people line up, or okay, you'll handle that.
Yeah, I think the best is to have people lining up in the center, if you don't mind, for questions. Just now, right? Not now, but a little later.
Okay, great. Well, Marissa, let's jump right in and talk about some of the announcements that you're making today. One of which you wrote a blog post this morning. I don't know how you did that. It was sort of in the middle of the night. Why don't we talk about that first with Zeitgeist and how you're expanding that to 30 countries and what you're doing with that?
Sure. Well, what we're announcing today is our global Zeitgeist for 2008. So at the end of each year, we look back and do a retrospective based on all of the searches and activities we've seen on our site. And so we released that this morning. It includes all the top fastest rising search terms that we've seen in 2008. So which queries did we see that were new in 2008? Which ones grew the most year over year? And obviously there were a lot of queries worldwide for the US election, Sarah Palin, Obama. We saw a lot of events like the Olympics, as well as Euro 2008. And then there was also a lot of activity around social networks, not surprising. So Facebook, 20 in Spain, Naza Klaza in Poland, Ven Kent Ver in Germany. We're all in the top global search terms. So there's a lot of really interesting trends. And then, of course, tying in with the conference theme, the question, what is love, was the most asked question worldwide. And is also one of the word love is one of our most translated words on our translation site.
Huh.
Is that all you have to add?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm here to help, for the Q&A.
So
I will say hi each time. Keep going.
You broke it out by 30 countries. Have you ever done that before, and I just didn't notice, or?
This is the first time that we've broken it out over 30 countries, and it's really interesting to see some of the trends on a local level. It's a lot of times, the global trends are always interesting, but when you start looking at time-based trends or country-based trends, that's when things get really interesting.
Where did Britney Spears end up this year on the US list? Was it number one?
So Britney, of course, has always had a lot of searches. So when we do a contrast between 2007 and 2008, she's been searched for a lot in 2007. She still was searched for a lot in 2008, but it wasn't a market change.
The second product, I don't think you've announced yet. So get ready, we're announcing a new product. I think you can consider. Did my mic get, oh, there we go. Around iGoogle and causes. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So later today, we'll be announcing on the Google blog iGoogle themes for causes. So for the past 2 quarters, we've been reaching out to artists and designers and having them develop themes for iGoogle. So you can see great artwork on iGoogle. And now in the spirit of holiday giving, we have worked with nonprofit charitable organizations, the World Wildlife Fund, Heifer International, Save the Children, and we're taking photography of the amazing work they do, turning it into themes on iGoogle. So you can see those themes on iGoogle, and we also have a Donate Now link and an easy way to share with family and friends.
And is that live now, or will be live later today?
That'll be live later today.
And how do you add it? You go to iGoogle Gadgets and it's there? Okay.
If you go to the iGoogle Themes directory, you'll see a link of themes for causes. We'll also be running a promotional link on the Google homepage to drive people to more information about it.
All right. Let's talk about the Chrome browser for a minute. How many people in the audience have tried out Google Chrome? So none of those people are Mac users.
How many of you are using it now as your default browser?
Oh, that's a good question.
Wish there were more hands up for that.
What is Chrome's global market share?
We haven't actually gauged market share because it's very new. We have millions of Chrome users, and obviously we hope to have more. The big priorities for Chrome right now are really getting out of beta, because it's a downloadable client piece of software. We want to move it out of beta, ideally sometime yet this year, and hopefully that will happen very soon, as well as bringing out our Linux and Mac versions of the browser. And then, of course, there's always new features. So we're really focused on taking that Chrome technology, polishing it up, making it even more of a world-class application than it already is, and just seeing what type of market share that captures.
You talk about taking it out of beta, and I mean, anybody that looks at Gmail sees that Gmail is still in beta, and it was launched in 2004, I think. Why is it important to take Chrome out of beta so quickly after launching it?
I'm glad you asked that, because I think this is something that is often misunderstood about Google. At Google, we really have two different types of betas. We have client software betas, where there's a really stringent definition around the beta on an industry level. When something's downloaded and installed on your computer and it's marked as beta, it basically means it's new, you're still getting the bugs out. And in terms of distribution, being able to make OEM distribution deals, a lot of OEMs will not distribute beta software because they don't want to harm people's computers. So while something's in beta and it's client software, it's important to run a rigorous but finite beta period of somewhere on the order of 8 to 12 weeks. And we're getting to the end of that now with Chrome. When something is server-side, say like Gmail or even Google Web Search when we first came out, is a little less defined in terms of what it means in terms of beta. So there, we're willing to really keep the beta sign there as long as we feel that there's still important advances that need to happen.
Okay, and so you're saying it coming out of beta is imminent. Does that mean this year? Does it mean this week? When exactly are we talking?
Well, I can't say specifically, but it's going to happen very, very soon.
Very, very soon, as opposed to soon. Okay. So it could be today. Probably not.
Probably not today,
okay.
But soon.
So you're saying, all right, tomorrow? Okay, so I'd like to talk about SearchWiki, this new abomination that appeared on my Google search screen a few weeks ago. And I know you've been testing it all summer because readers were sending in the screenshots. And then suddenly it was just there. And everybody knows what Google SearchWiki is. If you don't, you just go to Google and look for the really ugly stuff that's next to the search results, and then all the spam comments that'll fall down beneath that. What in the world are you thinking there, and why? Well, let's start with that.
Well, to start off with, it's just 3 little icons. You really shouldn't get quite so worked up about it. You'll see it if you are logged into Google. So if you're doing signed-in searches on Google, you'll see 3 small icons that have appeared on the page next to each result. One allows you to take that result and float it all the way to the top of the search. Another allows you to delete it. It literally blows up. It's animated and blows it up. And the final one allows you to add a note to yourself. And you can actually, when you go back and you do that search again, you'll see those edits. They're persistent. You can also go and look at all of the edits done in SearchWiki. So why do we do this in terms of search? 1, we think that search needs to be more dynamic, and 2, it also needs to be more personalized to our individual users. And SearchWiki was a great way for us to experiment with both of those factors in a way that I think makes sense. So interestingly, until now, search has not been very stateful. basically, you would do a search, and if you did that search again tomorrow, we don't know that you did that search yesterday. We don't know that you thought result number 3 was better than result number 1. We don't know that you had mentally discarded result number 5 as irrelevant. So when you do that search again, you lose all of that context. And SearchWiki is really a way of making search stateful over time, so you can pick up where you left off. And you might say, well, how useful is that? But it turns out about 40% of searches from a given user are repeated searches. These are searches that that person has done before and probably will do again. And because that makes up such a large fraction of searches, we think it does make sense to allow people to take notes. So if you imagine, for example, putting together a vacation or doing an in-depth piece of research, you may actually do a few queries in a row, and you might want to be able to keep track of, this result wasn't very good, this one really helped me. This is an example of a really great activity I could do, those types of things.
What about giving people an option to opt out once they've accidentally opted in? Is that something that's possibly coming? I think that it sounds like it's not.
I think that it's likely that we will allow people to toggle the modes on and off, so you could see it with icons or without. I think that the default will be on because we want to fuel participation. We want people to try out these dynamic features. I think that a lot of times what happens, we notice on the search interface, because you use it every day, even small changes get a really big reaction, where sometimes if you use them for, say, a week or a month, you get really used to them, and you find out that they're more useful than you thought at first. So we're likely to keep SearchWiki on by default from the beginning, but that said, I think it does make sense for people to be able to toggle it on or off.
When will that toggle be live? Soon or very soon?
I think that it will. I think that it will likely happen sometime in the beginning of next year.
Okay. All right. One question about SearchWiki and the data you gather. Your explanation for why it's good was about the user experience, which I think is reasonable. All of that aggregate data that you're gathering about what people are doing with the search results, let me rephrase this. How are you using that to improve Google search results for everyone?
Right now, the edits that come in through SearchWiki are not used in our overall search ranking. When we launched SearchWiki, for us, it was really a grand experiment. We didn't know what people would do. We didn't know if they would float a lot of results to the top, blow up a lot of results, have a lot of comments. We didn't really know what type of edits people would want to make to the search page. Now that we have a little bit better sense of it, because we've seen millions of edits, I do think that there's a possibility of us looking in aggregate when we see really large signals. 1,000 people all deleted this result from this search. Those will start to become signals that could be used in search, but as of today, we aren't pursuing that.
Okay. Let's talk about Google search in general. Let's sort of blow this up a little bit. You have 60-something% market share according to ComScore. I think that most people, when they think of search today, they think of Google. It's becoming a verb, for instance, in movies. Let's put that aside for a second. A few months ago, you wrote a blog. I'm sorry. You were quoted by the LA Times as saying that, and I think you were misquoted, but saying that search 90% of the work is done, and that there's sort of 10% left. And I jumped all over that. It didn't sound like something you'd say. Even if you thought it, it'd be weird to say it. Because search, while Google is great, is still horrible from my perspective. You clarified your point, saying, yeah, well, the first 90% was super easy, and all the real work is in that last 10%.
Well, it wasn't super easy, but
okay.
It was easier.
It took 10 years, yeah. So putting this together into a question, you have a lot of hard work ahead of you. You already dominate search. You may not like that word, but from my perspective, you do. What are you going to do next to take search to the next level? And is there a point where you almost have too much market share and you've done too much? Sometimes people excel when they have more competition than Google has. So what's the future of search, I guess, is what I'm asking.
We definitely think that competition is good, and it really benefits the users. And so we really want to make sure that there is healthy competition in search. And I think that one reason search has made the advances it's made in the past 10 years is because of competition. That said, when I made my 90-10 comment, it was in reference to an 80-20 problem. So we all know about 80-20 problems, where the 80% solution is 20% of the time that you need to do. My point was that search is even worse, because it takes about 10% of the effort to get 90% of the way there, and then 90% for that last 10% of the solution. So we have the basics. We are able to search almost all of the content on the web. And we have a pretty good ranking algorithm. But that said, we know there's a lot of ways that search should evolve. So how? Well, one way we believe is through modes. How often can you search, and where can you do searches from? Right now, you usually have to use your laptop, and you type in keywords into a search box. What if we made it much easier for you to search from your phone? What if we made it much easier to search from your car? What if you could search by voice? What if you weren't constrained to keywords, but you could type in concepts or type in questions? What if you could ask questions by voice? All of those are things that we think are really interesting and likely to help push search forward. I also think that introducing new media into the search results, trying to think of it less as 10 URLs that answer your question, and more as all of the different types of answers that you get introduced into your search results page. Today, about a quarter of Google search results pages incorporate a different type of media. Images, video, news, local, books, blogs, right onto the search results page. But we know in the end, almost all search pages should have some amount of additional and alternative media in it, because we really want to stitch together the best answer for our users, not just the best 10 URLs.
If you allow me to jump just on this one, Marissa, when do you think we'll have good video search? Because you have YouTube, and I know you've done some experiment there to have voice to text and then search in videos, but do you think we'll have like a real video search engine soon?
Well, I think there's two ways to approach video search. One is from a textual standpoint, which you can do with tags, or you can do speech to text, where you basically extract transcripts out of the videos using speech to text. The other is through actual image recognition.
Oh, so face recognition?
Right,
and
so
how
obviously,
far away are we from that?
If I had to take a guess, I actually think that speech to text is further along and more likely to have the initial breakthrough that moves video search forward than visual recognition. Because the visual recognition problem is only getting harder. There are definitely people in academia who have studied this, and there's been some early results that show that as many as 1 million people can be recognized in, say, film reels, right? So a computer can learn what Cindy Crawford looks like and then pick up that face in all the different frames and all the different newsreels. That problem's getting harder because of things like YouTube. Because now it's not the case that there are 100,000 or 1 million celebrities in videos. There's now 1 billion different people and faces that can appear in videos, and lookalikes and similarities between people become that much more prevalent as you see that scale up from 1 million to 1 billion. And so I actually think the visual recognition problem, because of some of the content creation explosion we're seeing on the web, is actually making the visual recognition harder, particularly for people.
How far away are we? How far away are we from doing all the things you said, recognizing a human face as an individual, or even just Google recognizing that the Eiffel Tower is in a picture without added metadata tipping you off? Years? Decades?
I would think that we would see good advances on these in the next 5 to 10 years. There's a lot of promising data, and as I said, it's a little bit hard because the problem, especially on image recognition, keeps changing. But that said, I think there's been promising enough results that we'll have a breakthrough in that area and get to at least the point where it's usable in search as we broadly offer it in the next 5 to 10 years.
So you don't have like some secret search engine internally that you have that already does all this, and you're just holding it back from us for some reason? No? The conspiracy theories don't work?
And I should go back to the future of search. So there's modes, there's media, and then there's also personalization. So we think that when you look at the winning search engine in 2020 and what traits it's likely to have, we think that one thing that will be true is it will understand more about you, the user. Maybe it'll understand your preferences, maybe it will just understand where you are, but it will understand a little bit more about you and be able to present more relevant information as a result. And so I think that's something that we've already begun experimenting with personalized search.
Using also data from like other people than me? Like you could use what's in there about yourself And then it could be a little scary too, right?
Well, so one thing we should know is we're very careful about user privacy, and we always are very transparent about the data that we're using and give users choice. But in personalized search today, we've been looking at a lot of different elements. One is geography. It turns out another is the last query that you just did. That is one of the best ways to personalize your search, because if we know what query you just did, what results you clicked on, and which ones you discarded, we can actually do a better job adapting the next query set, the next result set that you see. So it's interesting, we don't know what the big signals will be that will fuel personalized search, but we are willing to posit that in the future, personalized search will be one of the traits of the leading search engines.
Before your next question, could we have someone holding a mic in the center between the two rows? And if you have questions for Marissa, please start lining up. But you should stay here with the mic, please.
And obviously another part of personalization is the social aspect. We know that social searches happen all the time. You know, you're in Paris, you know, just landed here, where should you go to dinner? Is that play any good to see? What should you do? All those questions you might ask someone here at this conference are in fact social searches. And there's no way to do those social searches online. We really think that the virtual world mirrors the physical world, and that there will become ways of easily communicating with other users like you, people who are local, to try and get better recommendations through search.
Have you seen the Mechanical Zoo startup? They have an aardvark product. Have you tried that out?
I've tried
What do
it
you
out
think
a
of
little
it?
bit. I think, well, the Mechanical Zoo was actually started by several people from Google, and they have very good people. So there's some interesting ideas. I think that some of the visual aspects of the search engine are really nice. And I think it's going to be interesting to see where they go from here.
I'm just saying, could you do a line? One after, yeah, great.
Before we let...
Thank you very much. Just one next to each other.
We get to questions.
Thank you.
I have one more question before we jump into that. One of the other areas, I mean, you have a ton of products report into you, but local and geo is one of those. Can we talk just a second about local search? And before we come up on stage, you said that, I assume this is US, but 70% of disposable income is spent within 5 miles of the home, and yet there really is no local search product that works well. What are your thoughts there? Where is this going?
We think that local search is one of the big opportunities in 2009, because all those statistics are true. Most of your disposable income is spent within 5 miles of your home. About 70%, some studies have shown. And if you think about it, there's no way the web really helps you do that. Think about some of the Christmas shopping you're doing. I know I've been doing a little bit of Christmas shopping, and if you try and wonder, hey, can I buy this locally somewhere where I can drive to, or do I need to buy it on the web, at which point in time it costs more because of shipping, it's worse for the environment because of shipping, right? You know, all of those elements, you know, e-commerce is great, but it doesn't really help you understand what can you buy locally, what are the services available locally. And we actually think that that's a big opportunity in terms of improving local search, and also in terms of providing an advertisement opportunity that's more locally focused for small businesses.
Okay. Are you ready for some questions?
Yeah, let's take the first question. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Frédéric Tabarot. I own a blog about culture, and I'm wondering about data privacy around the world, and I would like to know how you're compromising between not being evil and the business, like in China. I know that in France, for example, all the Nazis' search are blocked. How do you compromise, and what is the policy of Google about that?
Okay, well, there are two key questions in what you talked about. One is privacy, and we take privacy at Google very seriously, because building our users' trust is one way that we've won as many users as we have, and so we really value it. And we think that the best privacy principles online are transparency, letting people know what information we have and how we're using it, which is why we have products like Web History, where you can see that record of searches done and results clicked on, and also choice. So you can decide whether or not you want to participate at all. If you are participating, you have control over the elements, over what elements are used. So you can go in and say, and delete, for example, the fact that you even did a search, or the fact that you clicked on a particular result. And in terms of some of the policies around China and France, there what we're doing is we want to provide our service. We think that providing our service is a really important end user benefit. And when we look at policies, say in China, really what we see is that there are two types of strategies. There's engagement and there's estrangement. We can go in and participate and try and build a business in China, or we can estrange ourselves. And we actually think that a greater good comes out of engaging in China, providing search to end users, and doing what we need to do in order to be legally compliant and allow that to happen and provide a great user experience. But that said, this is a constant debate that we have at Google as we look at exactly how those services are evolving.
Thank you. Can we have the next question, please?
Good morning.
Yep, just talk.
Oh, just talk. Okay. Good morning. I'm Ana Maria Llopis. I'm the CEO of a new site in Spain, ideasforall.com. I was just asking, I have sometimes put some ideas that I thought for improvement of Google. I don't know what happened with those ideas. I would like to ask you, how do you handle that? And one idea, for instance, that I put maybe 2 or 3 years ago that I still haven't seen, on the site of Google, and I have iGoogle, I'm a Googler, I have Gmail, everything, okay? So I'm a real fan of Google. But it's when you do a search, the temporary conditions of a bracket, they don't work very well. If you say, I want to look at, I don't know, Facebook, everything that's for 2008, and I don't want to see what was 2006 or 2007, it doesn't work very well.
Can you ask a question?
Yes. When are we going to have a temporary be able to search on a temporary basis with dates? And second, what do you do with the ideas that people give you?
Thank you.
Well, with dates, we think this is something that's really important. But interestingly, there's a lot of different notions of time. So for example, there's when something was first published on the web. There's the dates that it references in the item. There's also when the last modifications were made. And we think now that we've actually teased these different notions of date apart, we have some algorithms that help us identify these dates as they pertain to each page. And I actually think that in 2009, you'll start to see some of the first temporal searches, where you can actually do time-based searches along those different notions of time. And in terms of ideas that come in from users, we really pride ourselves on innovating. And we think that some of the best ideas come from our users, either through explicit suggestions on blogs, or through emails, or through behavior. It's interesting, when you look at our global zeitgeist, one thing that you'll see is that a lot of users are searching for destinations. They're literally doing navigational queries. They want to know how to get to Facebook. They want to know how to get to YouTube. And our observation there was we actually think that part of this comes from browser confusion. People sometimes type into the URL bar what they meant to search for, and sometimes they type into, say, a toolbar or a Chrome search box where they meant to go in terms of a URL, and it was that observation that caused us to roll out what we call the Omni box in Chrome, where we just have one box and it sorts through, did you type in a URL or did you type in a search? But the decision to do Omnibox was actually based on an observation of user data from Zeitgeist, like we released this morning.
How many times a day does somebody type the word Google into the Google search box?
Too many times.
Is it thousands, tens of thousands of times a day? I mean,
I would guess it would probably be tens of thousands of times a day. But you never really know. Sometimes they're looking for information about Google. They might be looking for the stock price on Google. There could be any number of reasons why that's occurring. But we do see it more than you'd expect.
Next question, please. Can you introduce yourself? And hold the mic tight, close to your mouth, please.
Yeah. This is actually dedicated to the seed camper. So this is Christopher from Scred. I tried your Google search application for the iPhone, right? Unfortunately, as you probably know, it just does not work with my accent. And that's something that actually some people find kind of offending, that you have to talk like an American to get it to work. Is that something that you're going to be looking at in the near future, like very soon?
Sure. Well, definitely speech-to-text, one of the big hurdles is getting enough samples of the way different people say different words that you can actually still do good speech-to-text, which is what's happening inside of that voice search, and make it work well. So the more people who use it, the more samples we have, the more we can train, and the better the speech model will get over time. So part of it is that we just need to have a data set large enough to train off of, and then I think once we have that data set, we'll be able to roll it out and make it more international and less sensitive to accents.
Okay, we have time for one last question, unless you have more questions, Michael, yourself?
I've asked everything I'm allowed to ask, so.
I think you're employee number 7. No?
I was early. I was in the first 20 or so.
First one, employee number one. The question is a management question. How did you help the company scale to such a scale, globally and product-wise? You're widely known to be picking your own teams and to have interviewed most of the top first employees of Google. So how do you pick people? How do you manage people under extreme pressure of growing globally like you did in the last 10 years?
Well, I guess I have a lot of different thoughts on that. In terms of how do you pick people, it was interesting. In the very early days of Google, one of our HR people, Stacy, was given the impossible task of doing an interview training for all of Google. But of course, there were lawyers there, HR professionals, facilities people, engineers, all kinds of different people there. And she had to do a general interview training that worked for all of us. And she got this great paper that basically talked about what traits you should look for in people. And there were two basic traits. Smart gets things done. And I think that when you're thinking about how to start a business or how to grow something or how to scale things, that's really what you're looking for. You don't want someone who's smart but doesn't get things done. That's obviously bad. You don't want people who get things done but aren't very smart because they do the wrong things. But we're really looking for people who have a lot of fire and passion around innovation, around change in the world, and we think are really smart and able to execute on those ideas. And in terms of other scale, I think that part of what happened with Google in terms of scale was it just became really popular. It really just started breaking down international barriers. I still remember in early 2000 being in Switzerland. And I'd gotten used to seeing the Google logo every day because I was always programming on the homepage and the result page. I walked through an internet cafe and saw it there. Right, someone was just using it, and I remember just being kind of stunned. Like, I realized at first I didn't notice it, and then I went back and thought, wait, that's not supposed to be here. Here's this website that I was building with my friends, like, halfway around the world, and here it is. And when you have a really great idea and a really good technology, it just begins to catch on. So the scale was really something that was thrust upon us by the user adoption. But that said, we did have smart ways of thinking about how to scale. And one was trying to adopt practices that we knew would scale. Right, so when you're thinking about what types of things should you do in terms of technology, can the data center design that you have be replicated to Europe, to Asia, to some of these other places? Can your data policies be internationalized well or not? And those types of attention to detail and making sure that these items are scalable from the beginning go a long way in terms of reducing friction and allowing you to, say, do things like rolling out Google Chrome in 40 languages on the first day. We were able to do that because the technology was built from the beginning with an eye towards internationalization, towards scale.
We have no time for more questions because we have Joey Ito, CEO of Creative Commons, just next before we break. And so Michael will just ask the last question. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I actually just want to say that. I hope I see everyone tonight at the TechCrunch party. And Marissa, will I see you there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah? Okay, great. And you'll be signing autographs?
Oh, we'd love that.
And thanks very much for doing this. It was great of you to fly out to Europe for it.
Yeah, and Marissa, I'd like to also thank you for LeWeb'. You're making this happen. So we hope you'll come back.
Well, it's a great conference. We're really happy to be here. And
thank you so much, Marissa.